Well, hi there. I'm really looking forward to working with you on this episode. This is a teaching episode. It's just my voice today. I hope you can handle that. And we're going to walk through how to narrow the arrow, how to make your audience a little bit more defined to help you target the people that you're meant to be talking to better. And I said in the introduction, quite often when we're not getting the results we want from our marketing, it's one of three things. It's either we haven't narrowed who we are talking to, we haven't narrowed what we do and what we're telling people we do, and we're not narrowing the way that we're doing those things. And I want you to think and imagine a really big wall, like it's got bricks, it's thick, it's strong, it's a strong wall. And I want you to imagine that that wall is called success. And what I want you to do is think about an arrow that's going to push through that and target it. Now that arrow has to have a really a sharp point on it for it to push through that wall at probably quite a high velocity. Let's be honest. I'm not a physics person, so don't trust me on how this is going to work. But the broader we make that arrow, the more we try and shove in the top of that arrowhead, the wider that arrow gets. And then what happens is the very tip of it becomes quite blunt. And it makes it harder for us to be able to make an impact into the market that we're trying to get into. So this is all about narrowing the arrow of who we sell to. And I'd love to say that I had introduced the word or phrase narrow the arrow, but it actually came up in one of my webinars when I was talking about this, and someone said, well, the arrow needs to be narrow the arrow. So whoever that unnamed person was, thank you, because you've given this a great start to this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really hope that this is something that's beneficial. I was running webinars on this topic and live events earlier on the year, and I found that people would often come through and go, wow, I had never thought about it that way. When we teach marketing and we're doing it on a very simplistic level, often we're talking about how to target persona people. So you say, oh, look, I want someone who's 35 to 45, who drinks, I don't know, pink champagne and has a chihuahua and lives by the beach. Or you might want to say someone who shops at Kmart, or whatever the thing is that you want to do as your target market. But what I want to do is talk to you about the different other things that you can think about in terms of targeting. And some of these ones are ones that I use for Identify and ones that I've used for our clients to great success. So we're going to walk through that. So I said at the beginning, there are three ways that you can target your market and make things better. Or there's 7 ways you can target your market, but there's 3 ways that you can change your messaging. And the first one is to narrow who you're targeting. I'll just talk to you about the other 2 quickly. The second one is narrowing what you do. And the reason that this is important is that we often try and talk about everything that we're doing all the time. And I always say you need to be like an iceberg. You need to make sure that you're only talking about the core things that are most important for you. So we just want to make sure that you've got the core things and work out how you're going to say those things to the people that you're targeting to. If you tell me that you're marketing to everyone, my little heart will cry. In fact, I often say it's like getting a blunt butter knife. I think I said this in a previous episode, and stabbing me slowly to death, because it is the most painful thing you can tell me. When you're marketing to everyone, yep, you're marketing to no one, because no one will find you or choose you if you are trying to be everything to everyone. I just recently did a session with someone, and we were talking about how not everyone likes us. The thing is that you won't be a fit for everybody. Around 30% of people will not like you no matter what you do. They won't like your services. They won't appreciate you. So let's take the pressure off and just talk about the things we do best to the people who we work with best. It doesn't mean that, say, you only work with people over the age of 40. If someone who's 35 walks in the door, you go, oh, sorry, can't work with you. You're not 40 yet. Come back in 5 years. They can still come to you because they've obviously been attracted by the type of marketing you're doing, but it really helps to have a good picture and idea of who you're talking to make sure that you're doing that. Now, the other thing is too, it does give you liberty to say no to people because you know that they're not the right place as well, which is really important. So let's go through these. So obviously there is targeting by persona. That's the way that we talk about all the time, but there's all these other things you can do instead. You can target by industry. So let's take Identify, for example. We work with all sorts of businesses, but we do have particular strengths just because of our experience. I am like the person that you come to if you want to have something around education. And I often work a lot with coaches and people who want that personal brand, because that's kind of my sweet spot. I've worked with over, I don't know, thousands of businesses. And so there's lots of different businesses I've worked with, but I know those are two that I feel completely in my cruise control with and feel very comfortable with. I've got another team member, Tracy, and hers is tradies, and she's very good at those. She's also good with e-commerce because she has an e-commerce business herself. Targeting by industry means that you can target specific people groups. So you might want to just work with the hospitality industry or tradies or particular people, and that immediately narrows the way that you have a conversation with them. It works out, where do they hang out, what do they do, where are they hanging out, what are they doing, how do you attract them, and you can have a marketing plan that's focused on the industry. Now, there are some drawbacks with this. I worked with someone last year whose target industry was the tourism industry, and her second one was hospitality. And so last year with COVID-19, that meant that her business pretty much dissolved overnight. Now, it's a once in a lifetime experience having COVID-19. I think it's probably a once in many generations of life experience, hopefully. But you know, you do have to be aware that with these, you need to be able to have flexibility in these if you need to change it. But targeting by industry is a very valid way of narrowing that arrow and making your target more focused. I often say with these targeting ways that you normally have like two of them together. And that means that you've got opportunity to move away from one if it's not fitting. The next one that we can talk about is targeting by desire. So have a think about what desires are you building in people. This is perfect for people who are in e-commerce, obviously. So let's be honest, how many jackets do you need, or black t-shirts or pairs of white sneakers? But targeting by desire is growing this desire and this feeling that need. And it's a specific type of the brain that we're using when we're doing this. I know that we talked in a previous episode with Lauren Clement around how the brain helps us work out what brands do. And she talked about the hypothalamus or the animal brain. And that's just part of our brain at the back, or I think Seth Godin calls it the lizard brain. I call it the animal brain. And it's a part of our brain that builds this desire, and we can't tell the difference between need and desire. So it is a part of the thing that we use for urgency. We use it when we use the word sale. When you say sale, people go, "Ooh, I think I need to have that." Limited edition, things that make people feel like they need to have it, that desire can be it. So you could be specifically targeting people who want to have a boho style house, and so you're pushing that stuff to them. It's a particular type of thing. You're building that desire for them. Alternatively, you could target people by problem. So you might target people who are going through perimenopause. You might target people who want to lose weight, who want to get fit, who want to get their babies to sleep through the night, who want to get a new job. Whatever that problem is, that becomes the niche that you're working in. You don't have to say, oh, I'm only going to work with 25 to 45-year-olds. You could just make that is the target, and then you can have a few other bits in there. But targeting by problem is very valid. Solving a problem is great. There's only one thing I'd say with this, is that you have to make sure that your messaging when you're talking about problems stays really positive. It can be quite easy to slide into the negatives because you're pointing out or pushing the bruise of their problem all the time. And then you can start to attract people who want the help but don't want to pay for it and can be a bit needy. So you need to be careful. If you're attracting people who are asking for lots of free information all the time and not valuing your time, sometimes it's because you're phrasing and tuning as you focus too much on that problem, and they are in a place of so much extreme need that they can't work out that they need to come to you for it. So that's just something to be aware of when we're talking about that. The next one is one of my very favorites. And the reason I love it is it means that I work with people that I love working with. You know, I've got a friend, she's got another agency, similar values to us. But one of her core values that she even has on her website, I don't know if it's still there, but her name is Giovanna, and she owns a business called Bumper Leads in Melbourne. And she has on her website no dickheads policy, which I think is hilarious. And I've seen it on other people's as well. I think it's a kind of a funny thing. And I love that she says that. But I think we can also say no dickheads by sharing what our values are really clearly so people get to know who we are. I had a client last year who fired me because my values around time and his values around time didn't match. He kept on taking personal calls during our Zoom meetings. I said that he would need to stop that because there wouldn't be another meeting. This was the time. And that didn't fit with his values, which is fine. That's his values, my values. It's not a value judgment on values. But that grated up or was abrasive against my values. Our values in our business, we talk about them a lot. We have follow the customers, so we listen and follow what customers are doing and where they're learning or how they best learn. So we've moved a lot of what we're doing into a webinar or podcast space to help people to learn in their own time. One of our values is add value, so we try and find ways to add value to people like this. And then the last one is to keep it simple. So we try and make sure we don't have a lot of jargon, that we keep everything in a level that makes it easy. So we share these values, and by sharing those values, we attract people who, one, really like those values, but also tend to be attracted to that because they have similar ones. We talk about the fact that we're a family-run business. It's Rod and I together, and 2 of our girls work for us. So we often attract husband and wife teams or family-run businesses because it's similar values to us. So you can target by shared values, and what that benefit of that is, you get a commonality. You get a commonality of people that you can feel already get each other. And when you've got that, it builds trust faster. So I obviously like that because it's one of ours. It's one of the ways we target. We specifically share our values and share a lot about who we are and how we work so that other people do that. And the benefit that I found from this one is that I've also found other people who I would normally have thought as competitors. And I found the ones that fit with us best with shared values. And you'll see some of those people on our podcast or hear some of those people on our podcast, because I've identified people where I go, they have the same values when it comes to customers as us. They care about people the same way. They have the same passion. And so it's helped me build a group of people around me who I could go, look, if I'm not the right person for you, try this person because they have similar values and I know you're going to get a great job with them. So I really like that one. That's one that I've my favorite one in doing it. The next one is targeting by location. I work a lot with service-based allied health businesses. So, osteos, physios, even like hairdressers, so they're not allied health, but anything like that, or plumbers, bricklayers, tradies of any sort, trades and service-based businesses where you've got a geographical location. It is legitimately okay to just say that you service that town. You don't have to get really granular and go, I only work with over 65s in that town, because there might not be enough of them in that space to do that. And I feel like I used to put this pressure on small business owners where they were in a specific location without a huge population. Look, if you're in a city like Sydney or Melbourne or Auckland, and you're in the central city part of Auckland, a bigger one, then maybe you do need to target in another way. But often if we're in a small town or a regional city, targeting by location is actually a completely valid way to do it. I'm just serving the people of my town. And that works really well. And then you can just talk to them about the things that are going on in your town or little small regional city as well. So that's a really valid one. The next one we can do and talk about is targeting by personality. And this one can get a little bit funny for people, but it is one that we have used. This is called Map It Marketing with Rachel Klaver, which is me. And it's using a little bit of personality. The reason I did it is, for a long time with Identify, I stood back. I called it Identify because I didn't want to feel like it was the Rachel Klaver show. And I still don't think it's the Rachel Klaver show, just let me get it right. But I would let team members do our socials and things like that without really thinking about what my values were and what I wanted to do. And around 3.5 years ago, I've told the story before, things changed. And I went, actually, I need to target via my personality, because if I show who I am and my values and how I interact with people, then the right people for us will come along, and we'll be able to serve them better. And we'll also be able to get better results for them. And so we use this. So coaches must use this as part of what they do. If you're going to be a coach or a strategist or a trainer, even if you're going to be someone who's teaching along the way, then personality is part of this, because you can't work with someone you don't particularly like. I have this whole thing about, would you be liked or respected? When you're working with someone alongside them, the respect is really important, but there has to be a bit of a like factor. You have to feel at ease with that person. And if you're feeling self-conscious, it's going to make it really hard. So if you're a coach, then one of the things you can just do is just show up more. Show up more, be who you are more, and that will naturally find your target market. One of the examples I give is there's a really well-respected business coach who is just killing it. She's doing an amazing job, and she uses swears a lot. And I have got a bit of a potty mouth, but I don't tend to use a lot of swearing in my marketing, and I don't tend to use it on things like this. You might get the occasional crappy word coming out of my mouth, but I don't tend to drop the F-bombs on a regular basis. And that's because the personality that I've got is that's my brand personality. You don't have to have it exactly the same as your personal life. I can definitely drop F-bombs like the best of them, but it needs to be close enough to your personal life so that it is authentic. You can't fake it. And I think one of the things with personality is you have to be confident enough in yourself to know that this is the self that you're putting forward has to be very, very close to your true self if you're going to do this effectively. All right, so we've done targeting by industry, so number one. We've done targeting by desire, number two. Targeting by problem, number three. Targeting by shared values, number four. Targeting by location, number five. And targeting by personality, number six. And the last one, which I don't really think I do much, is targeting by trends. Now, if I'm going to do this, I tend to do this as a social media post or something. So I've recently done a whole lot of stuff on Instagram Reels because I'm fascinated by them and I'm learning myself. And so I'm creating stuff around that stuff. But I don't actually want to be a strategist that's known for getting on the latest trend and staying up with it. It creates a lot of pressure for me. As a marketing strategist, the tactics are great, but for me, it's the messaging and this stuff, this core stuff that's really important. And it's easy for me to get stuck on the tactics. But you can have a business that that's targeting by trends. It could be fidget spinners or I'm going to show my age now, Pokemons. Or things like that. And those are the things that you can have. I don't know, like it could be floral, plaid, short dresses, hats, whatever the trend is. Often fashion is often targeting by trend. So that can be an often one. And so you can find these 7 ways. And I'm going to put them in the show notes. I'm going to list them all for you. And I want you to think about it and go, how do I create my target market using these? And you may need to brainstorm, especially like you can't just go, oh, I'm going to use target by personality. You've got to think then, well, what is the personality that I'm going to be showing people so that they're attracted to it? If it's target by shared values, you need to know what your shared values are. If it's location, you need to think, have I made my location big enough to have a target market that's actually going to be there? If it's problem, again, it's the same thing. I worked with someone recently and we walked through it and realized that her target market for what she wanted was only 250 people that she could target. And she wasn't putting her pricing up at a premium level. So she either had to put her prices up, which she was fairly confident that people wouldn't be able to pay, or she had to broaden the market. So you might have to smudge this a little bit and massage it around. But I want you to think about how you can take action with it. Now, if this is something that you're going, I'm not too sure how this works and how this fits together, I'd love you to come along to one of our webinar Map It Express events. There's a link to them in the show notes. They are a webinar 3-hour event, so you do need to make sure that you bring snacks. And we supply you with a workbook for you to print off and walk through with us. You get heaps of information to help you work through how to market your business. And we go over this again, who you're targeting, what your positioning is, and what makes you special to make sure that you can help do this. So have a think. What are you going to target? How are you going to target to make that arrow not a really broad, blunt one, but a lovely, narrow, sharp one to push through that brick wall of success to get through the other side? Now, I just want to add like a little bit here. Once you've pushed past the success barrier, you can broaden that narrow because you'll have enough people that you can take with you to another place. But until you've got that, you've got to keep the arrow narrow. Right. Tune in next week. I have got a really awesome guest for you, and I'm so excited to share her with you. She is going to help you talk through how to get your pricing right. Her name is Natalie Coombe, and honestly, I'll tell you a secret. I've recorded the podcast already, and it is freaking amazing. You are going to learn so much from her. I learned heaps. I got to ask a question that I was curious about myself too. So at least I'm pretty happy, and I hope you look forward to signing in and listen to Nat next week.